Thank you. Thank you, Barbara and Guillaume, for the organization and for the invitation. I'm going to speak about results we have obtained on extant radioactivity, but also on long life systematics. And with these results, we can constrain the early silicate differentiation and try to better understand the dynamic of the early Earth. So this work has been realized in collaboration with many people. So after a short introduction, I'm going to present the chemical tools. So it's the first presentation in geochemistry. We have a few data points with big error bars, which will be a little bit different than the other presentation. So I'm going to present the result obtained with this systematic, the 146 systematic 142 neodymium, result obtained on chondrite that will be compared to result we have on terrestrial samples. And after, I will present data that we have obtained on on Archean sample. And we will discuss this differentiation event. Is it a global scale event, the age of this event, and the relationship between the Earth and Moon? To speak at the end with, on this part on the early mantle dynamics. So we have almost no terrestrial record from the Hadean. And it's probably a key period because during this period we have differentiation of the silicate Earth, and we have also important events like the giant impact, so for the origin of the Moon. And if we look at this map, all the terrestrial record we have only a few samples that are very old. For example, only one zircon with an age of 4.4 billion years, so an age obtained by the uranium length systematics. This zircon has been found in the Jack Hills formation, so here in Australia. New data on the Nuvvuagittuq greenstone belt, so located here in North Quebec in Canada. The age of the belt is discussed today, but it can be very old, close to 4.4 billion years. After that, the oldest sample is 4 billion years in Acasta, and we have an area here in the southwestern part of Greenland with samples as old as 3.8 billion years. So, in fact, the terrestrial rocks are young. Most of the terrestrial surface is formed by oceanic crust, so 80% of age are younger than 200 million years. Of course, since the first lunar landing, we know that it's completely different for the Moon. For the Moon, we have obtained the first age, and we know that 80% of age are older than 4 billion years, and 95% of age are older than 3 billion years. So the Moon is a highly differentiated body with the crust here represented by this white area, so very low in iron content. It's almost composed at 100% of plagioclase. And we have information on the interior of the Moon with this volcanism, so all this area that will be black, and here, so enriched in iron content. So if we want to better understand the early silicate evolution, we have to work on refractory lithophile elements. So these elements are very high condensation temperature, and it can be assumed that they are present in the same ratio relative to each other and to the solar composition. So there is no fractionation during the solar system condensation. And also because they have no affinity for the metal phase, we think that they are not fractionated during core formation. However, because we have difference of incompatibility, for example, for the samarium neodymium, the neodymium is a little bit more incompatible than samarium. This element will be fractionated during silicate processes. So we have a different radioactive system composed by refractory elements. So two kinds of radioactivity, the extant radioactivity. So this systematic have very short half-life. That means that the half-life is sufficiently long to survive interval between the end of nucleosynthesis and the planetary accretion, but is short, and this system will be extinct during the ADN. So, for example, two systematics, the samarium neodymium and the hafnium tungsten. So, in fact, the tungsten is not lithophile, but is siderophile. But we have still tungsten in the mantle, so silicate processes will also change the hafnium-tungsten ratio. So, on this diagram, it's represented the evolution of the 146 samarium through time. So, we have a decay, and after 500 million years, we have no more 146 samarium present in the solar system, so the system will be extinct. After this time, the 142 neodymium will be constant until today. However, if we have a silicate differentiation so rapidly in the solar system history, and for example, this evolution, if I increase the 146 samarium in my reservoir, I will have more production of radiogenic 142 neodymium, and so an excess relative to an undifferentiated reservoir. And I'm going also to present data obtained with long-life chronometer. So for this chronometer, the half-life are long, and the parent isotope are still present today. And I'm going to speak about two different chronometers, so the long-life samarium neodymium and the lutetium hafnium. Why this system? Because I'm working on very old sample, and these systems are robust against alteration and metamorphism. Most of the Archean samples are metamorphosed on amphibolite facies. So the first result we have obtained on chondrite, so it was on 2005, and during this study, it was the first time that we measure with high precision the chondritic 142-144 neodymium ratio. So since 2005, we have a precision of 5 ppm, which is very low, and before that, the precision on the chondritic mean was minus plus 50 ppm. So the precision was like that. So in 2005, we find that, in fact, all terrestrial samples that are here, they are not represented, but I will show you a slide later. So all terrestrial samples are here, and the chondrites have a deficit in 142 neodymium relative to terrestrial sample. So in fact, if I consider the mean, considering all the data, I have 20 ppm difference. So the terrestrial sample have an excess of 20 ppm relative to chondrite. So in order to explain this difference, we have two different explanations. The first one is that the bulk silicate earth has not a chondritic composition. So that means that the chondrite is not the building block of the earth. And it needs to have a samarium neodymium ratio that is higher than chondrite. If I have more samarium, I will have more 146 samarium, and the 142 neodymium production will be higher too. And the second assumption is that all samples derived from a depleted mantle reservoir. So a mantle with a high samarium neodymium ratio, and this reservoir must have been formed very early when the 146 samarium was still present. So for the first model, if I want to explain a difference of 20 ppm, I need to have a Earth with a samarium neodymium ratio that will be here. On this diagram, I represented all the different values we have for chondrite. And in fact, we have a very small variation in samarium-neodymium ratio if I consider the different chondrite, but also the basaltic eucrite and the angrite. So these are achondrites, so that means that they are already differentiated. So we have no evidence for such a material present in the solar system. This material is not present in our meteorite collection. So the second assumption is that all samples derive from a depleted mantle reservoir that has been formed very early. So the first model that we proposed in 2005, when we measured this difference between chondrite and terrestrial sample, was that an early crust has been subducted in the deep mantle. So, in fact, all the different models must consider that the differentiation event occurred very early, before 30 million years, so it's very quick in the solar system history. And also that we have two reservoirs that have been made during this differentiation event, and one reservoir has never been sampled since its formation. So in fact, in this model, we think that if we have a magma ocean, the last liquid to crystallize will be very enriched in incompatible elements, but also in iron. And because this first crust will be dense, it will sink in the deepest part of the mantle. So it's represented here. However, we have no constraint on the size of this reservoir. So here in this picture, it's the size of D bubble prime, but it could be smaller. And on this diagram, we can assume different size for the two different reservoirs, but the conclusion is that all the mantle is depleted, and we have somewhere, maybe here, located at the core mantle boundary, a layer really enriched in incompatible elements. And this layer must contain more than 40% of the Earth's potassium, uranium, and thorium. So when we propose this model, one strong argument against this model was that the chemical differentiation is produced very early and before the moon formation. So that means that the collision, the giant impact forming the moon, would have not melted and homogenized the Earth mantle. And recently, one paper published by Touboul et al. Bring new constraint because they have measured 182 tungsten anomalies in Archean sample. So for the first time, we have samples that have preserved a record of a very early hafnium-tungsten fractionation. And this hafnium-tungsten fractionation must have been produced very early, before 40 million years, because this systematic has a very short half-life and will be extinct rapidly. So that means that we can preserve chemical heterogeneity even during the giant impact. So probably the giant impact has not molten all the mantle. So a second proposition is the basal magma ocean. So Stefan spoke about that yesterday. The idea is a little bit different today, but it can be closer than this one. So that means that you have a liquid or a solid that will be denser than the surrounding mantle, and it will sink in the deep mantle. And maybe because it's full of heat-producing element, it can melt after that. So in 2007, Andreasen et al. Proposed that maybe rare earth element could be in the core. So, okay, it's easy to put element in the core, but in first order, it's not supported by cosmochemical observation. For example, we have no rare earth element, so no samarium and neodymium measured in I1 meteorite. However, I1 meteorite are small planetary body, so maybe conditions that will be different than the Earth formation. we start to study unstatite chondrite because in unstatite chondrite, rare earth elements, so samarium and neodymium, are not strictly lithophile elements, but in fact, 50% of samarium and neodymium are concentrated in a calcium sulfide, so the oldamite that we can see on this picture. And in oldamite, we measure very fractionated pattern and a large quantity, so with the concentration between 10 and 100 times the chondrite. So in order to investigate this possibility, we have realized experiments, and in fact, for different conditions, so here it's the partition coefficient between the metal liquid and the silicate melt, so of samarium over neodymium, relative to the oxygen fugacity, but we have also tried different pressure, temperature, and we have also changed the sulfur content. And in fact, we observe no fractionation between samarium and neodymium, and also these elements are lithophile. The concentration using this partition coefficient, we will find a concentration in the core that will be below 2 ppb. But if we want to resolve this hidden reservoir enriched in incompatible element, we need maybe 5 or 7 ppm. So with this experiment, we can say that the core is not a reservoir for the samarium and neodymium. So the last model is the loss of the early crust. So in this model, we don't need to put a reservoir hidden since its formation in the deep mantle, but in fact, this reservoir has been lost in space. So it's a collisional erosion model, so proposed by different people. So in fact, in this model, we assume that we have early differentiation in planetary body, and during accretion, we have this erosion of the crust, and the crust is enriched in incompatible elements. So in fact, the Earth corresponds to the accretion of depleted mantle. Again, I present the measurement we have on chondrite, but also on basaltic eucrite, and basaltic eucrite correspond to the first crust we have on small planetary body, and for me, basaltic eucrite have not fractionated samarium-neodymium ratio. I mean, this first crust has a chondritic samarium-neodymium ratio, and this is represented here. Here are the different basaltic eucrite, and they have flat pattern. The enriched reservoir we need should be very enriched in light rare earth element compared to the heavy rare earth element. And in this model, of course, because we lost this early crust, we must lose also a very large part of its producing element like thorium and uranium. So all the different models, I think it's really difficult to select one model. We can argue for one or for another model, but the conclusion is that most of the mantle is depleted in incompatible element, and this must be very early after the beginning of solar system accretion. So now, if I look the data we have on Archean sample, so here the result on the Nouveau-Agetuc-Greenstone belt. So if we assume that this line is an isochrone, it gives this age for the crystallization of the belt, but this is discussed. I don't want to discuss more about this data. And here, the data we measure on 142 neodymium on Archean sample. So we have excess relative to other terrestrial sample in this sample coming from the Isua supracrustal belt. And using the two systematics, so the short-lived samarium neodymium and the long-lived samarium neodymium systematics, we can calculate the age of the differentiation. And even if we have a large error bar, we can say that the differentiation must occur before 4.42 billion years, so during the first 150 million years of the solar system history. And we think that this chemical fractionation is associated to the crystallization of the magma ocean. And this age is almost the same as the age we have for the oldest Jackyll's zircon, so 4.4 billion years. But this age is also the age we have for the formation of the lunar crust. So here are the different results. We published one paper last year. So we measure for the first time the same age using three different systematics on one sample. So we think that the lunar crust has crystallized around 4.4 billion years. And these results are in agreement with results obtained on the extent hafnium-tungsten radioactivity, because if we consider lunar sample, we see that there is no variation on 182 tungsten. That means that when the moon has been formed, this systematic was extant. So now if I plot all the data I have for the lunar crystal rocks, and so these data are not published yet, but for the first time we measure 142 neodymium isotope on anorthosite, we can see that it's like the lunar sample and the sample we have, so from ISUA with excess on 142 neodymium, can form a single line. And if we assume that this line represents the age of the differentiation, we have something close to 120 million years. So it's sure this error bar are underestimated, but it's just to say that it's late. We have no differentiation event very early, I mean before 50 or 100 million years. So is it a global scale event? I will say yes for two reasons. The first one is that 142 neodymium excess has been measured in different parts of the Earth, in southwestern part of Greenland, but also in Australia. So this result published by Vicky Bennett in 2007. So the anomalies are small, but it seems to be resolved. For the first time, we measure the two systematics in the same sample, and this gives information on the mineralogy of the source. And we measure 143 neodymium that is positive and hafnium isotope that is negative. I don't want to tell much about that, but in fact, if we look at all the terrestrial sample, we have always a positive correlation between hafnium and neodymium. For this sample, we have a negative correlation, so we need to be on this side of the diagram. In order to explain this isotopic signature, we can look at the partition coefficient we have for the different minerals. In fact, in the upper-mantle minerals, for the two systematics, the parent isotope, so the samarium and lutetium, and the daughter isotope, we have always the same partition coefficient. That means that the daughter isotope is more incompatible. So we have always this positive correlation. And if we want to explain the difference between hafnium and neodymium, we need to imply high-pressure minerals. And the only one that can explain that this systematic will be decoupled is the magnesium perovskite. So if we want to explain the data, we need to involve a deep source formation for the ISUA basalt with a mixing between almost 98% of magnesium perovskite and 2% of calcium perovskite. And at the end, so we have all this excess in 142. It seems that the that the excess in 142 decreased with time. And for the first time, we have measured a deficit in 142 neodymium. So this data have been published in Nature 2 weeks ago. So we measure small deficit in sample coming from Greenland. So it seems that we have two different complementary reservoirs. So these two reservoirs will be formed during the crystallization of the magma ocean. The chemical heterogeneity are preserved until 3.4 billion years. After that, all the samples have the same value. So here we have a negative value, but in fact, these data have not been reproduced by another group, so we don't think that these data are right. So after 3.4 billion years, it seems that we have an efficient mixing, and we have no more 142 neodymium anomalies in terrestrial samples. If I compare this data with data we have for the Moon and Mars, so the terrestrial samples are almost the same 142 neodymium isotope signature of the lunar samples. For Mars, it's completely different. We have large excess in 142 neodymium. Why? Because the fractionation event occurred very early in the solar system history, so around 40 million years. So because at 40 million years, the 146 samarium, the parent isotope, was still present, I can increase a lot my composition of 142 neodymium. For the Moon, it's different. The differentiation occurred late, around 150 million years. And for Mars and for the Moon, these anomalies are preserved through time. There is a debate on the age of this sample, but not for this one. So that means that for Mars, at 1 million years, I measure always the 142 neodymium anomalies. So the 142 neodymium signature 2 times. So here I represented the excess we have, so in Greenland, but also in Australia. And it seems that we have two different evolutions. We have a differentiation event, so here, around 150 million years after the beginning of solar system history. And this sample comes from a depleted mantle that evolved with positive 142 neodymium signature through time. And around 4 billion years, it seems that the signature decreased because we start to mix the two different components, the depleted reservoir and the complementary enriched reservoir. So how to explain this picture, whereas the Adian mantle must be hotter and the convection more vigorous, we don't think that the convection was so different than the convection today. So to conclude, if the Earth has been formed by the accretion of chondrite, two major silica differentiation events occur during the first 150 million years of the solar system history. One very early, and this chemical differentiation has been preserved on the solar system history. I don't know where is this enriched reservoir, if it's in the deep mantle or in the space, but we need to involve a very early differentiation. We think that we have a second event of differentiation. This differentiation is linked to the Moon formation, and we have probably a magma ocean crystallization. So this chemical heterogeneity will be preserved in the mantle at least during 1 million years if we consider the 142 neodymium data, but 2 million years if we consider the 182 tungsten data. So we can find in the mantle record of this early silica differentiation event. So that's why we have no record of the first 150 million year history in the terrestrial rocks. Thank you.